everyone, and welcome to this next Fem session. Today I'm joined by Bex Wealthy, and we're going to talk about neurodiversity in the workplace. So thanks, Bex, for joining me.
Hello.
Excellent. So I'm just going to read you a little bit of your bio so everyone knows where you're at and what you're doing. But if there's anything else you want to add once I've read it, then everyone will be more than happy to understand more about your role and what you're doing. So Bex is an independent financial planner at SG Wealth Management, and she was diagnosed with ADHD in July 2023, and she's passionate about helping more people understand ADHD, sorry, and how to manage this in financial services in our workplaces. So thank you for that, Bex.
Yeah, that's okay. Yes, that pretty much sums up really. Especially being late diagnosed, I kind of seem to be helping a lot of people that are getting their diagnosis later on in life, especially women, because it seems to be more undiagnosed in women until later life.
That's really interesting. I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so how can I ask, if it's not rude, how
Yes.
old were you when you were
I
diagnosed?
was 31 at the
Okay.
time. I had suspected it for about a year before then, mainly because I was in therapy at the time, and my therapist said, "I really think you should go and get an assessment done." Obviously, at the time, I thought it's just naughty boys, isn't it? That's what people typically think. And it wasn't until I'd done a lot of research into it, and to be honest, it was mainly on social media, having a little look on there. That I kind of thought, wow, something's clicked here, and I definitely think I've got ADHD. As I don't really know anything about it before then. But yeah, doing lots and lots of research. I mean, I've kind of spent the past 2.5 years teaching myself everything there is to know about it, and as well as autism, just trying to figure out, yeah, learn as much as possible, really, because we don't really learn this sort of stuff usually.
No, and so I mean, it leads us really nicely, I think, into just like a really, really open first question of, you know, can you tell us what ADHD actually is?
Yeah, so ADHD is a neurodevelopmental condition which is character. So I get struggling when I also struggle when I'm speaking. This is part of the neurodivergence. Characterized by persistent patterns of inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity that interfere with daily functioning. So it's just your brain's a little bit different. You process things a little bit different. It responds to information different. And that's kind of where I realized that something, I don't like saying wasn't quite right, but something was different, because I felt like everyone else around me kind of understood things a lot more, and there was always something holding me back a bit. So yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it. And it's also a recognised disability under the Equality Act 2010, which means that companies and sort of health providers, anything like that, they need to put in place reasonable adjustments if you request them. So yeah, that's a very important part for sort of the workplace.
And so talk to me, I know I don't want to go off script too much because I know I'm going to throw it might throw you,
That's
but
fine.
just about when you were doing that research on social media to find stuff and you thought, actually, I think this might be me,
Yeah,
or I think it's worth going for my to maybe be assessed.
yeah.
What sort of things were you seeing that play out for you when
Um,
looking at
so
that?
yeah, so I started writing on my phone on my 90 something notes that I've got on my phone at the moment. Just things that related to me. So the first thing I found personally was that at night I would be exhausted all day, and I'd get into bed and it would be like I could do a marathon. I just could not sleep. And that's been persistent since I was a child. I've never really understood why that happens. And I've been on medication for that for about 10 years. Um, and that was the first thing that really stood out. The other things, sort of focusing, I really struggled to keep my focus on things, and memory struggles, which is kind of, I'll explain to the audience that I have written down a lot of my notes because I will not be able to remember things off the top of my head. It goes in one ear and out the other unless it's written down. So that was them sort of the main things as well. Another thing is my emotions. So I would feel like a toddler, I guess, where I would have sort of, I now call them meltdowns, where I just can't control my emotions. And it is quite embarrassing when you're 31 years old, well, when I was 31 years old, and not being able to control your emotions. Yeah, that's not, wasn't really ideal. And also having a million hobbies and um, getting bored of them very easily. They were the sort of main things that I would
Hmm.
say for me personal, but as I say, everyone's journey is completely personal to them, and there's so many different things that you can that are sort of symptoms, and obviously everyone, not everyone has the same symptoms as well.
Yeah. And so are there different types of ADHD?
Yes, there are. So there's two main ones, but then one's combined. So the first one is inattentive, which I'll go through some of the symptoms of this because it kind of relates to it. So when you've got inattentive ADHD, you struggle to focus, struggle finishing projects, you struggle sticking to the same task, zoning out quite a lot, dissociating. I don't know if many people sort of know what dissociating is, but it's where you kind of don't feel like you're in your body. Well, that's what it is to me anyway. Forgetting where you put things, that's very annoying. That's one of my main ones as well. Memory issues, organisation struggles, and a short attention span. The next one is hyperactive, which can include symptoms of things like impulse purchases because you're constantly seeking the dopamine. You just want something in you to just have the dopamine hit and you want it now. Um, that can also lead to addiction issues, money management struggles. So a lot of people that have ADHD end up in a lot of debt because they don't know how to get dopamine from somewhere. Um, Interrupting others, talking too quickly, and this one especially is in women. So internal hyperactivity. So a lot of men are hyper on the outside. This is obviously very typical, um, very not typical, can't be the word. But as women, we kind of internalize that a lot more. So I would have constant racing thoughts and constant thoughts, like they would never stop. Um, and that was really quite hard. I think that's why I struggled to sleep so much because it was just constant, constant, constant. You're constantly on the go. And as women, we kind of feel like we need to just act normal. And I hate the word normal, but just feel like you have to just carry on going and eventually you'll burn out. And then the next one is combined, which is that's the most common one, and that's what I've got. So a bit of both, really. I have struggles with an intensive, and I also have hyperactive struggles as well.
And yeah, we were talking very general about men and women's
Yeah.
symptoms, but is there anything else that usually shows up for women? Since our audience is women, that's generally who we're talking to. So that's why I'm kind of asking more about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, so it kind of with women, it's usually, as I said, it's internal hyperactivity. So I I struggle with um just trying to just arrange my thoughts, I guess. And because it's constantly on the go, and also you get words mixed up, which I always do, which you'll see. So inattention as well, so zoning out quite a lot. I remember as a child zoning out all the time. If I'm in a long meeting at work, my colleagues now know to kind of just keep it short and snappy as much as they can. And like I wouldn't be able to sit in a 3 hour meeting normally because it just wouldn't, unless I have a lot of short breaks, it wouldn't be possible. Disorganization, I say that, but actually disorganization for a lot of people, but I think this is where the autism in me comes out, is disorganization. So I have, and a lot of my friends at neurodivergent have like piles of organized mess. So around your house, you'll have sort of your piles of stuff. Um, and that's a lot of my neurodivergent friends have that. And then, as I say, emotional regulation. So men, I assume, well, most men are a bit more able to deal with that, whereas I find my friends that are women with ADHD or neurodivergent in general really struggle with their emotions. They can be very, very high, very low. Um, and also going back to that slightly, personally, I thought I used to have bipolar because I was never diagnosed with bipolar, but I couldn't understand the ups and downs that I was going through. And also it leads to feelings of anxiety, depression, and overwhelm and burnout, which then leads a lot of the time in women, especially, to misdiagnosis. So I was diagnosed with depression and anxiety about 10 to 12 years ago, I think, like initially. Um, and I've been in therapy literally for about 10 years on and off. So, and I've been on medication for it. But that you tend to think it's that, but actually that's just the underlying issues you've got because you're not diagnosed. As soon as I got my diagnosis, it's like a switch went off in my brain and I felt fine, like depression wise, since because I feel like I'm finally understood. So, yeah.
I guess maybe it must be our hormones, something to do with the kind of ups and downs being maybe so extreme with it, when men maybe not suffering as much with that. So
Yeah.
presumably that's what's interplaying with the other,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Also on that, I've not done research into this, but I know a lot of people that get to menopause, that's when they realise that they've got ADHD is because so I've not done too much research in that and to that side of it, but I know that a lot of people that get to menopause and also a lot of people with ADHD have PCOS, or there's some sort of link there between them, which I have PCOS as well, and a lot of my other friends at Neurodivergent also have it. So I've not done the research into that, but I know that there's some sort of links there as well, which would make sense why women struggle a bit more, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Really, like, so interesting, and really interesting that like your diagnosis almost was like after that many years of
Yeah,
struggling with them kind of pushing you into that's what's wrong with you to
yeah,
like have that massive switch for you.
yeah, yeah, definitely. It was a lot of it's kind of a lot of grief, I think. I had a lot of grief after that. It was kind of thinking, well, what could my life have been? I mean, I think I've done very well for myself, but how could school have been different? How could my teenage years when I sort of went off the rails a little bit, how could that have been prevented? I think I've been quite open with my struggles with examinations. Um, I think when you have one of the symptoms of ADHD is hyperfocus. So with my exams, I think I was in such a hyper focus of getting that done that I managed to do it. But now, since about I've been qualified as an advisor for about 8 years now, since then I've struggled so much with exams because the hyper focus went, and then it was a lot harder to actually do exams because if you're not interested in something with ADHD, it's very, very hard to get back into something. Um, that yeah,
Yeah. And so one of our questions, well, the next question is about ADHD and money.
yeah.
So talk to me a little bit about what you think is important we understand about that.
Yeah, so as I say, with ADHD, when you're seeking the dopamine constantly, it can lead to money issues. I know a lot of people that have money issues or had or have money issues with ADHD. It's very easy to get into debt with it because you're constantly seeking something. I mean, I know for mine, especially in lockdown, was new clothes. I didn't even need any new clothes, but it was that instant, yes, I've just bought something. Or hobbies, for example, yes, I've just bought everything I ever need to be a painter. Um, and then you just lose interest straight away. Well, not straight away, but it can be like a week, it can be 4 weeks. You lose interest, and then you're like, oh, now what? I've got all this stuff, but I don't need it. But it's the constant seeking of dopamine, which I'll come into it later, but with medication, it calms that down. So you're not needing to seek dopamine constantly, and understanding that you don't need to get yourself into debt. And I think a lot of more education is needed on money management, especially with ADHD, because as I say, it's so easy to get into the habit of like dopamine, 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 that
Mm.
it's so easy to get into that. But yeah.
And I spoke to a lady on my podcast who's got ADHD, who isn't in financial services, because that's what I'm intending to do, speak to people outside of financial services. And with Freya, she said that she's had to like almost rewire her where her dopamine comes from. So she's managed to do it. So when she moves her money to her savings account, like that's her dopamine hit.
Yeah,
So she will do that. Or if she's really desperate to go, she'll go to like Home Bargains and
yeah,
just get it out there rather than
yeah,
do it online or whatever. I just think it's really interesting that we're probably never going to be able to fully stop our like desire or the desire to do that, but if you can rewire where that is being applied, that you
Yeah.
get a dopamine hit from saving the money and like rewire your brain a bit on that, then I just thought it was really interesting how she's like she has to do it like immediately that she's been paid, and she's got
Yeah.
like that things that she has to do so that she can control it through the month.
That's exactly what I do. I have all of my bills coming out the first of the month, unless I really can't change it, but the first of the month. So even though I'm a financial planner, it's I know that all my bills are done, and what's left is, savings, or start. I give my money, I get myself some money to actually spend, because if I don't spend anything, then I'm going to seek it I'll end up seeking it, and I'll probably end up in debt. But it's, just making sure that, as you say, you rewire where you get it from. And I've got a lot of different apps now as well that help with the instant dopamine release. So I'm trying not to sort of spend money as such, but yeah, just get the dopamine from somewhere that isn't, and yeah, saving money. And I think there's some apps that kind of give you goals. And I know that Monzo, I don't really use Monzo that much, but I know they've got like saving pots. If you get to the goal, it like tells you like, oh, we've got to a goal.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and obviously premium bonds are good as well, because you get prizes, not always, but you get prizes, you're like, oh yes, I've won, and that's dopamine straight away. So there's different ways of getting the dopamine rather than spending the money.
I think it's really interesting. I am going to switch the questions because we'd said we were going to do another question, then do about
Yeah,
how advisors could, but I think it works. We're talking about money,
yeah,
and also, like, I know now we've opened these conversations more and more about neurodiverse traits and diagnoses. One of my things I'm really interested is to understand from you, like, as a financial planner, when anybody listening and I'm dealing with someone who is, I believe, neurodiverse, they may or may not have told me that, but you can kind of understand that maybe your brains aren't working the same. But if it was you and it was someone that I was dealing with ADHD, are there certain things as a planner that you think we need to just be aware of or adjust, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I'd say my main one is written communication, because I find that I say to all my clients in my meetings, especially ones that I've realized a lot of my clients are neurodivergent, which, because I just talk openly about it now, I'm like, well, if I talk too quickly, please tell me, because I'll slow down, and I'm just open about it. Which has led me to say to clients and also colleagues, written communication is the most important thing. I can't just pick up a phone sometimes and have that conversation, because I need it written down. I can then take notes, but for me, if I was a client, I would want written communication after. Always. I mean, I always send post-meeting notes to clients anyway. And my notes are very thorough, so they won't have to remember anything. Also, we record meetings. But I'd say, yeah, the most important is written communication. The next one is what I've been speaking to my colleagues about, is sort of learning about people. So I've done, over the past 10 years or so, I've done a lot, I read a lot of audio, well, I listen to a lot of audiobooks because I really struggle to read. So written, was it personality types? Personality types is so interesting. And there's another book called Surrounded by Idiots, which tells you about colours of people and what it kind of relates to. That is incredible to learn, because I know that some clients will fit into this box, and you've got certain ways to deal with people. Um, and another thing is love languages, which isn't technically to do with romance, but it can be how you help your clients. Some people would love a birthday card. Other people, it's helping them to do, not they're attached to, helping them to do something, so acts of service. But learning a lot about people has helped me so much in this job. Even not being neurodivergent, it's just helped me learn so much about people. Um, and I think I would say to anyone listening to this, if you can look into personality types, the color types, I can't remember exactly what the phrase is, but Surrounded by Idiots book is really good for that. And love languages, because you just learn how to deal with different people. And then if they are neurodivergent, I mean, I'd say a lot of my neurodivergent clients are the color blue, because they're very analytical, especially if they're autistic, very analytical, and you know that they are going to read every single thing that you write. And that's why I adapt my way to them to make sure that it's in an easy format because they like to know everything about everything, which is yeah, just
And
knowing
it's
different
it's quite difficult because typically, as an advisor, and when I might be making a massive judgment on this, but um, when you come to those colours, which I think are like blue, green, amber, red, or yellow, red, and then you can get various different ones on the spectrum between them. But like an awful lot of advisors and like business owners or sales, who are more inclined to sales are going to end up in that red and
yeah,
amber category. And actually, then we've got a whole load of, potentially we've got neurodiverse clients who are sitting in blue,
mm,
straight green,
yeah,
that we've got to learn to deal with,
yeah.
how we deal with their personality and how best they're going to react to
Yeah, absolutely. And I think,
saying.
yeah, that's the most important thing, I think, is just learning about everyone as much as you can, really, because yeah, I think that's one of the most important things I've done over the past sort of 8 years of advising.
Mm. And so, talk to me a little bit about you mentioned about hyper focus and your study early on, but talk to
Yeah.
me a little bit about how ADHD affects, studying, education, ongoing like CPD and stuff in the workplace.
Yeah, so I'd say everyone has different learning types, which actually is one of the things I'm trying to add to my reading list is learning about different learning, but types of learning. So personally, if I get given a book, an exam book to read, there's no way I'm going to pass that exam. Um, I mean, I will try my best. I've always tried my best, but it's very, very hard
Yeah.
to get a book. And I actually tried to do it last night and I didn't do any of it in the end because I looked at that book and I thought, there's just no way. It's the most boring way of learning. And also a lot of the financial exams are online and it depends on which route you go. But I've gone to via the CII and a lot of them are online and things like the written exams I found a lot easier, but it's basically a memory test, and if you don't have a very good memory, it's not going to help. No matter how many adjustments they give you, you can give me extra time, but if my memory isn't working, it's not going to work. I'll still fail. I've taken so many exams and failed so many exams because I can't do memory tests.
Yeah.
And I've recently done a mental health first aider course, which was amazing. It was all online and it just was so interactive and it was so interesting and it's all stuck in my brain. I'll remember it because
Yeah.
it was so interesting. I know there are different ways to study it, and actually that's one of the things at the moment I'm trying to go through is trying to find how is best to study because a lot of especially in financial services, it's normally just one route, which isn't okay for everyone. So yeah, memory struggles and focusing is the most the biggest struggle for me personally.
Yeah, and you're right. Like those CI exams, we've all been there. Like
Yeah,
it's literally learning by rote. Like you learn it off by heart, and that's the
yeah,
only way that you're going to get through it.
yeah.
And so it's really interesting. Do you know if any of the, as an aside, do you know if any of the exam bodies are like making any moves on this? Because, in any kind of discussions around it.
Um, well, I know CIR were looking at a different way to get to chartered, so I'm not chartered yet. I just don't personally. I say this to everyone. Everyone's like, "No, you'll be fine." I don't think I'll be able to get there because I can't do memory tests. And yes, you can do two coursework exams, but one of them's on retirement planning, which I've done more than enough of retirement. I don't need to just do it for the sake of it. I know they were looking at a different way to get chartered, which is more looking at your work and doing sort of something else, which I was absolutely thought that'd be fabulous. I know a lot of people in financial services were in absolute uproar about it. Um, but as I say, everyone learns differently, and just because
It
you can't
doesn't
pass an exam,
doesn't mean that it's going to
no,
be, and in fact, I would imagine it's going to be pretty comprehensive. I just think
exactly.
it's really interesting that we're all moving forward with these discussions.
Yeah,
We're being aware of vulnerabilities, of different things that we need to think about in our workplace. And yet we've got this like antiquated exam system
yeah,
that, it's literally like multiple choice,
yeah,
you've got stuff going on, or a 3 hour written exam,
yeah,
like they're pretty tough if you have attention issues, which are a disability, not
yeah.
just something that we used to say, well, you're not focusing on.
Yeah, and that's what I've been trying to speak with CII about it, but I've not really got very far at the moment.
That's
I
quite
have been, yeah, it's especially the amount of money you pay them. It's not been going too well, but I have been speaking with CISI, which I am considering going down their route because I want to do the CFP exam with them anyway. So I'd like to do the advanced diploma. I think it's the advanced diploma they've got, and then
yeah,
move on to the level 7. But at the moment, I've not done any more about that. But
yeah.
they are a
Because
bit more
that
flexible.
exam, interestingly, Aled, who works with me, is doing that, and
Yeah,
it's very broad, and it's still the same type of like the exam itself that you've got to
yeah,
get to before you can even do the case study. Like I
yeah,
think the case study is probably a suitable way of doing it, but the exam is very, you know, learn,
yeah,
read this book that you've
yeah,
got to, yeah. So that no,
yeah,
that's really interesting. Maybe it's something, yeah, we need to put our brains
yeah,
together and talk to people about.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah. Okay, so talk to me just a little bit then before we finish off about
Mhm.
if people are listening and thinking, I know that really I might be, or I know someone who might be. How did eventually you get that diagnosis, and how's ADHD diagnosed for most people?
So what I done was, as I said, I done a lot of research on this. It was originally I went to my GP and said to them, I think I may have ADHD. So I had an initial chat with them, and they done like some scoring system. You can get the scoring system on ADHD UK, I think, on the website. Um, and then I just had a chat with them about it. They then put me on the NHS waiting list, which is insane. I don't even know what it is at the moment. It's got to be about 4 years at least.
Yeah.
Um, After that, I joined some Facebook groups, and they have literally been the best help ever. I went via the Right to Choose, which is you go to a private provider, but it's funded by the NHS. Um, there's on the ADHD UK website, they constantly update that with the time from contacting them and then the assessment. Mine at the time, I went with Psychiatry UK, which was 7 months. So that was ridiculously quick compared to what it would have been otherwise. But as I say, this was in 2023, so I know it's a lot
Yeah.
longer now. Um, and then from that, I then got medication 7 months after that. So I started my meds nearly a year ago now. The other way is private. I don't know much about private, but I know I've got a few friends that have gone private. The only thing is, it might be affordable for the actual assessment, but if you want medication, you then have to factor that cost in every month. With the Right to Choose, the medication is provided by the private company to begin with, but then there's a thing called shared care. So they'll go to your GP and say, "Can you help us with this?" They'll give a yes or no answer. Mine was no, unfortunately. So the private company will continue to fund that for me. So yeah, I definitely look at the Right to Choose. That's the most important thing, I think.
No, that's really good and helpful for people. So, talk a little bit about the treatment options then. You said you'd got medication like 8 months after your diagnosis. So, what's that looking like for you now?
Yeah, so you go through a thing called titration. I'm really bad with pronouncing words. So that is quite a hard process to finish. I was very, very sick on my medication when I started it, like constant nausea. I was sick a few times. But you start off in a low dose, and they keep doing it every week to see how you're doing and if you need to increase it. It took me about 8 weeks, I'd say, which is probably longer than most to get the right fit. So I have a tablet in the morning, which is a slow release tablet. I have an instant one 2 hours after that, and then I have another slow release one about lunchtime. Um, but when they wear off, you do get a bit of a crash, but it's fine because I'm at home. But yeah, they've honestly changed my life for the better. As soon as I started taking them, my all the racing thoughts just stopped, completely stopped. It was the weirdest thing having a quiet mind. But medication is incredible. So I would suggest looking into medication. You don't have to stay on it. It's not for everyone, but I would personally say it's worth a try. And there's lots of other things that you can do alongside that to help if you want me to go through some of those.
Sure, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
So talking therapy and CBT is great. So talking therapy is just like your normal counselling. That has helped me a lot through processing this, I guess, because as I say, it was a period of grief and sort of learning who I am again. Hypnotherapy is actually what I started with when I got my diagnosis. Well, my hypnotherapist was the one that said to me, I think you should look into this. CBT is great if you've had a diagnosis or initial, because I think it's very easy telling someone to do something, but if your mind's constantly going, it's not going to really sink in. Same with meditation. Meditation is great now I'm diagnosed and I've got my meds, but before that, I'm not sitting still. Breath work, I've learned a lot about breath work, and like panic. So I used to get quite bad panic attacks, so a lot of learning how to breathe is good. Body doubling is not a treatment option, but body doubling, I have a friend called Clara who we both had ADHD, and we get so much done when we voice note each other or call each other or are on a call together. We get so much done. So just having someone there to sort of hold you accountable, I guess, is incredible. Really recommend that. Fidget toys, I've got a fidget ring on my hand. I always have that because when I'm in client meetings, I can just fidget with that. And it means I actually listen and don't just talk over
That's
people.
really interesting. Yeah.
Talking over people is a really bad habit. It's not a habit, I don't mean to do it, but it's really bad. So doing that and also making sure I can always write things down. Um, and I've got a habit tracker now, which I started 3 weeks ago. I've seen how long it lasts, called Finch, which is basically dopamine hits all day. So it's like I do my that tick list of things I want to get done, tick it off, you get some points, and you look after a little creature as well, which is quite cute. So little things like
Wow. Yeah. It's like a
like a
Tamagotchi
Tamagotchi.
stroke.
It is.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I mean, as I say, I don't know how long this is going to last, but it's
Well,
worth a try.
yeah.
Um, Things like I'd make sure you get a blood test as well to make sure you're not deficient in anything. So vitamin D and B12 are the main ones. Um, Fish oil, you can get vegan fish oil now, but omega-3, making sure you're taking your vitamins. Magnesium glycinate, I take before bed, which took me about a couple of months to get into my system, but that knocks me out now, knocks me out completely, and gives me very, very vivid dreams. I think that's because I'm in such a deep sleep. So yeah, anything like that. But obviously, I'm not a GP, and
No,
make sure
this
we
is not
get.
medical
No,
advice.
this is
No.
not medical advice. This is just, what has helped me personally. But always, I think a blood test if you're worried about your vitamin levels, because there's no point taking things if you're not deficient in it, because it's just going to exit your body. So don't go getting vitamin B12 jabs if you don't need them, because it's pointless. Yeah, that's the main stuff.
Fab. Well, there's a couple of things you've mentioned, ADHD UK, the website,
Yeah.
but are there other resources
Hmm.
that you think are important to share? Because I think what's really important about this session is that if someone's listening and they think that they've got ADHD, then
Yeah.
this is going to be really helpful. But
Yeah.
also, all of us are dealing with people, friends,
Yeah.
family, and clients who may well be now, it's just it's now almost okay to go, have you thought about,
Yeah.
like, and we're able to have those open conversations. So are there
Yeah.
places that we could point people to that would be helpful?
Yeah, well, I say two things really quickly is one, don't use the word superpower, because superpower is don't use that ever. Not everyone has it's not a superpower for everyone, believe me. It's not. It's definitely a disability for some.
Yeah,
And
that was
two,
definitely a big social media thing. I saw a
yeah,
lot of people, yeah.
yeah,
No,
it's
so
quite
that's a really
hurtful.
nice kind of reminder that it's not
Yeah.
for everyone.
Yeah, and also it does look like a trend at the moment because, as I say, a lot of people are getting to menopause, a lot of people are talking about it, and just because you have a couple of symptoms doesn't mean you've got ADHD, but that's why this is so important. But I say honestly, Facebook groups have just been, I know a lot of people don't like social media, but it has got me through this. TikTok as well. I know that's not everyone likes TikTok, but it really has helped me. Not everyone's going to have great advice. It's not medical advice, but just learning that you're not alone. I'm on a lot of ADHD UK women ones. They're actually inclusive. So if you're non-binary, that's also they're very safe places. And there's an ADHD UK group which is for everyone. Instagram, all you have to do really is search ADHD on Instagram, and there's so many accounts on there. But just learning that you're not alone in this. That was my main thing, because I sort of thought I don't even know where to begin. But you're not alone. There's so many things out there to help you. I'm actually starting. I say starting. I'm starting my own little social media about it, but I just haven't had the hyper focus kick in yet. So I'll wait till that happens, then maybe
You
one
let
day I'll
us
be
know
there.
when you do it. We'll make
Yeah.
sure you maybe
I'll
tell
talk to you
everyone
in a year's
about it.
time, see if I've done it. But yeah, I'd say social media is very important. See if you've got any local groups around you. I mean, as I say, I'm quite an online person, so most of my help has been online. But talk to your GP, see if there's anything out there. I know I've just moved to Suffolk, and I actually joined last night an ADHD symptom webinar, and it was run by a place called Wellbeing Suffolk, and it was incredible, absolutely incredible. You don't show your face, nobody knows you're there apart from the hosts, and it just gives you that support that you need. And you don't have to have ADHD to join these things, you know, even if you think maybe you've got it, or maybe you just relate to some of the symptoms. It's you can do so much research online, and then loads of books. My favorite book ever is by Ellie Middleton, and it's called Unmasked. I read that, and obviously it's not just ADHD, it's also autism, which I'm waiting for my autism assessment at the moment. But that has literally changed my life. It's very emotional because you're like, and also I'd recommend as well listening to the book because she narrates it, and it is very, very good. It's incredible. And that's my number one resource, I'd say to everyone,
And
have
who
that
was the
book.
author of that? It was called
It's
Unmasked.
yeah, it's by Ellie Middleton. She's also
Ellie.
got social media accounts. But that I think she's my number one resource of help. But yeah, listening to the book because she reads it herself, and she is going through her diagnosis as well. It's
Mm,
really, really, really powerful. But
wow.
yeah, just knowing
Okay.
you're not alone. Knowing you're not alone. There's loads of people out there will help. Yeah, that's the main thing, really.
And listen, I know now where you're working, you seem to have a really good,
Yeah.
supportive firm and employer. But when you joined them, did you just tell them straight away that
Yeah, so
that was that you had this that you had
yeah,
ADHD you know, and they were because the thing about it being a disability is something that I think some employers will certainly be just glossing over,
yeah,
you know.
yeah. And one thing actually I haven't mentioned is because this. So I joined my employer a year ago, and I won't go into anything in the past, but there's people out there that don't want to help you. That's all I'll say about that. So my current employer, I told them as soon as I joined, I said, right, I've got ADHD because by that point I had got my diagnosis. Not that it matters, but you know, I had it on paper to say yes, I've got ADHD. Access to work is the last thing I almost forgot to say. Access to work have been incredible. So you can get a government grant from access to work, whether you've got the diagnosis or not, and it helps you stay in work. So some of the things I got were like an Apple Watch, which sounds ridiculous, but it helps me remind me to go to the toilet, to eat, to drink, to take my meds, because without that, I won't remember anything. It's got help for things like I've got a lot of programs on my computer now, my work computer, so it will help me with note taking, it will help me get my thoughts out. I've also got a Remarkable 2, which is the best invention ever. So if you want to look online, anything to help you the most is a Remarkable 2. I should get commission from that now because I think they're incredible. But access to work is amazing. I think the wait list is usually about 6 months to get help, but yeah, definitely look into access to work and employers. Um, it is a disability, and you know it is taken very, very seriously. I think I heard on somewhere last week that there was increase. I think it was about 100 and something tribunal cases last year taken to tribunal because of not giving people reasonable adjustments. Reasonable adjustments can be anything from working from home more, which my work is very flexible. I also say to my work, if I feel like I'm having a really bad day, I can work from home and they won't question it. You know, it's especially if I've not got clients, obviously, but they won't question it. It's, you know, Bex is there, fine. Headphone noise cancelling headphones, loop earplugs are incredible. I'd recommend them. But yeah, and also just raising awareness. So my Access to Work grant has given me or the company a grant to have like neurodiversity training, and it's so important. Everyone should listen to it. But it's yeah, and also an ADHD coach, they funded that as well, but I haven't started that yet because yeah, I've just not got around to it. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I think also from listening to you, it feels like it's almost like the sad reality of it is that this can only be as good as like the kind of work you're willing to put into it as
yeah,
well. So
yeah,
you've done the research, you've
yeah,
learned yourself what this means
yeah,
to you and what you can do to get, you know,
yeah,
the best opportunities for yourself, and no
Yeah.
one's going to do that for you. So a lot of that is about, what
Yeah.
resources can I get myself? What support
Yeah.
do I need?
Yeah, it is. I mean, I got my ADHD diagnosis and was like, right, you're on the waiting list for meds. That's it. There was nothing. And the reason I've then done my ASD, my autism one after, was because I can't do anything about that. It's more for me. And people will still question you. They'll still question you that you ADHD or autism, because I mask so well. I get home and I can't move. I've done that. And socially, oh God, it's been in social environments. Yeah, there's a lot to autism as well, but that's another topic. But they also interlink quite a lot. So yeah, if you think about, if you get your medication for ADHD, autism will come knocking on the door usually. So yeah.
Well, listen, I think you're doing great, and I'm so pleased you found somewhere that's
Thank you.
working really well for you
Yeah,
and have the support that you need.
yeah,
I know everyone's going to be, really, really thankful for you being so honest about it, because I think that's what we need to, learn more,
yeah,
better at interactions with people. And so, yeah, thanks very much.
yeah. That's okay. No problem at all. It's been lovely speaking with you. And
Yeah,
hopefully I can help lots of people.
yeah, absolutely. Well, thanks, Bex, and
That's okay.
thank you, everyone. See you next month.